Well, the tariff debate hitting fever pitch after President Trump signed his aggressive tariff plan on Wednesday. The president's saying the markets are going to boom even after stiff losses yesterday.
We'll have to see. To talk more about it and how the tariffs are already impacting the American economy, we're joined today by Anthony LaBruna. He's the executive director at the American Principles Project, and Thomas Savidge is a research fellow for the American Institute for Economic Research. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Friday for some. Mainly the countries that are being tariffed right now are not having such a great Friday. But Trump's plan puts in place steep tariffs, Anthony, on several countries, with China being hit the hardest. Stocks taking a serious dip yesterday and potentially extending those losses in the futures markets this morning. Here's how Anthony Esposito, founder and CEO at Island Capital, explained it all to us earlier this week.
I'd like to pose it this way. You have a puzzle, and all of the pieces are in the wrong place, and they've been in the wrong place for quite some time, and Joe Biden put them in more of the wrong place. And now you have a Trump administration with everything you just mentioned and more has come in and said, okay, I can't actually replace this, so I need to wipe the board clean and start to build this puzzle again. That's the right thing to do. That's the strong thing to do, and that's what we need to be done for future success.
Do you agree, Anthony?
I do. I think that was excellently put. Back in 2020, the administration promised to deliver on tariffs. And I think they're the complementary factor with DOGE and the tariffs happening in this administration. Without DOGE last time, you had bureaucrats who worked against the president and his agenda. With that being said, this is a form of just wiping the board completely clean. We're restarting from scratch, and I think this is the best move for the American people to rebuild manufacturing and bringing it back to the U.S.
Interesting. Well, investors now seeking safer investments, with gold hitting a new record high, passing $3,100, announced this week alone. Thomas, do you see Americans gravitating toward bonds, gold, possibly cryptocurrency and other safe investments for the interim until this whole, global economy sorts things out with regard to tariffs and other trade barriers?
Oh, absolutely. The key word with these tariffs is uncertainty. Because even with President Trump's plan, the White House just yesterday released a 22-page long list of exemptions for these tariffs. And so you have to go through line by line and see if your particular business or the areas that affect your everyday life are going to get an exemption, or if they're going to be facing those tariffs. And with that mounting uncertainty, Americans, like you said, they're going to be looking for any kind of security they could find, any kind of predictability. And of course, that's T-bills, that's moving away from the dollar to gold. And that brings about some serious concerns globally about a shift away from the dollar as the world reserve currency because all of this uncertainty under the tariffs.
Yeah.
Well, what is certain, Anthony, is that Congress is going to be feeling the pressure to push the tax cuts forward in order to help Americans, because it's all part of Donald Trump's plan. The tax cuts, the tariffs, as well as reducing regulation. Can you elaborate on this?
Well, I think, for everyone, President Trump is making moves on this chessboard that no one can think down the road like he can. So for us, tariffs is just part of the plan. I think the overall structure is rebuilding the American middle class, and that's bringing manufacturing back to the states. He's leveling the playing field, and this is just the first step. I think Congress, is tearing their hair out about this. You have a lot of the left, already saying we're going to be in a recession. I just don't think that's the case.
Interesting. Thomas, let's talk a little bit about oil, being that we covered gold. Oil is actually taking a little dip. It already dipped already, and that should have a positive impact on gas prices for the American people, saying that, many people are saying that the cost of gas could spike, but we're seeing that it's actually receding ahead of the summer months with a lot of activity in terms of people driving more at a higher rate. So this is a good sign in terms of the gas pump, But is it also a sign that manufacturing is expected to slow down a little bit? Because we do know that OPEC changed its production level, and I thought they were going to reduce drilling, right? But they're actually increasing it. So if they're going to put more supply as demand is declining, that's going to suppress prices. Do they need the cash? Because that's a sign that they might be in trouble. What say you?
That's a good point, and it's really interesting to see how OPEC is doing. I'm not sure. I'm not in the room where they're making these decisions, but it's interesting to see that change where it's like they're still producing, and we're seeing that slowly. Those prices slowly go down. I think this speaks to something that I want to cheer the Trump administration on, is rolling back those Biden-Harris regulations on energy, on the environment, and on energy production. You want to see, of course, we want to see American energy production increase. And to do that, you get regulations out of the way. You need government out of the way, because what happened with energy production over the past 4 years was what you would call regime uncertainty, where if you were going to invest in some sort of energy production, you weren't going to know if 6 months, a year down the road, the government was going to change the laws and shut down your operation entirely. That's why, and when people feel like they have an axe over their head, they're less likely to invest, they're less likely to produce. And so that gets back to what President Trump was talking about with drill, baby, drill. And so hopefully this is a sign of good things to come. Hopefully the deregulation efforts of the Trump administration really help out in the energy sector, but that remains to be seen.
Well, finally, we had a big day at Newsmax yesterday. John and I were at the New York Stock Exchange, where CEO Chris Ruddy officially rang the opening bell down at the exchange. And those are some shots of the live bell ringing yesterday. Anthony, this was just such an important moment for Newsmax in that we are a growth company. Chris Ruddy stressed that on Squawk Box during his interview, and just how the media landscape has changed, and a big moment for us here. Your thoughts?
Well, it's a great-looking group of people up there. Congratulations to you guys. It is well-deserved. Chris Ruddy has been a strong voice for the president, a strong voice for America first. And, that's why Americans are flocking to Newsmax as their source of news.
Absolutely. And Thomas, it's so important that people actually find good news, especially during times like this, right, that we're currently experiencing, where it's not right, where it's not left. It's actually explaining the potential impact and the potential opportunity. We only have about 15 seconds. What's your closing remarks?
That's it. I mean, there are things that are worth cheering on for President Trump: deregulation, cutting taxes, hopefully cutting spending more with Doge. But then there's also things to push back on. Tariffs are taxes, not just on foreign companies, but on the American people as well. And they create uncertainty. If the American middle class wants to make a comeback, trade should fall in line with the other efforts of deregulation and Doge, and get government out of the way.
Absolutely. This is a great segment, but unfortunately, I have to ring the bell to bring a close to this segment. Anthony Labrina, Thomas Savidge, thanks so much for joining us.